There was a picture that went viral yesterday. I don't know if it was real or not. You can never tell anymore. I don't even know if it was from last night. But it sure was a nice encapsulation of, I would think all of us feel. It was John Henry sitting alone in his box with his head in his hands, as if you've got to be kidding me, as people were shuffling out. Well, the question is, can they do anything? Can they make any moves to make this really DOA team any better? And that's why we have on JP Riccardi, baseball analyst for the Red Sox and NESN and so much more. He was part of the big Moneyball thing. If you saw the movie, read the book, he's down with Billy Bean. JP, thanks for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. How you guys doing?
Hey, doing good. JP, we started the show trying to figure out whether this is the worst Red Sox team of our lifetime. And can you remember a team being this bad at this point of the season?
Well, it depends on how old you guys are.
Let's just pretend I'm your age.
I don't know if it's the worst Red Sox team ever. I think if you want to look at the positive side, it's a very heavy pitching organization right now. They've got really good pitching, and I feel good about that. I think for all of us that have been aware of the Red Sox for a lot of years, it's probably the least offensive team they've ever had. The Red Sox used to be power, 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 and it's a team void of power. And not only is it void of power, in baseball, you want to create a critical mass. You want to get as many runners as you can on base, get as much traffic as you can go on the bases, and then have your big boppers. If you don't have your big boppers, you got to still create that critical mass and try to create runs by having traffic. And they seem to have a void on the offensive end of both of those categories. So I see them struggling offensively, but I do like their pitching.
JP, how did they not see this, that it was going to be a problem in the offseason, that they weren't going to have those bats?
Well, I think, when you put together a roster, you put together a roster you believe in, and I think that they believed that they were going to be able to really be a pitching and defensive team. But, traditionally, you can go back to the early 70s if you want to. The American League East has always been an offensive league. It's been good pitching. It's where most of the money comes from. The Red Sox used to be a big spending club. The Yankees used to be a big spending club. Toronto back in the day was a big spending club. They've turned around now, and they're a big spending club again. So the big spending clubs have both offense and pitching. And I think they went into this with the idea that we're going to have really good pitching and try to have run prevention and try to win games that way.
Well, JP, you've been in the front office of different places for a lot of years. If you were running this front office, what would you want to do now? What would you do next?
Well, I think it's kind of hard to make a trade right now. There's very few teams that are going to be willing to get off some of the players that are part of what they're trying to do. Obviously, you could kick the tires and see what's out there, but it's got to come at the expense of some of your younger players, probably some of your younger pitching. What I would try to do with present lineup, present roster is, most people don't want to hear this because these aren't household names, but Yoshida and Gasper need to be in the lineup because they're the two guys that make consistent contact. They draw walks and they get on base. They're not the sexiest guys. They're not the guys you thought at the beginning of the year, but they've got to get a group of guys that can create some more traffic on the bases. And right now, those two guys are on-base guys for them. And they need to get those guys in the lineup more and then I would try to run a little bit more. Sedane can run. Obviously, Anthony's hurt, but Marcelo Mayer can run a little bit. Yoshida can run. Story can run. Abreu can run. They've got some guys in that lineup that can steal some bases. I would have more of a hit-and-run type lineup. I know most analytic guys don't want to hear that anymore, but they've got to realize what they are real fast and start making an adjustment on the fly.
I mean, that's the interesting thing, JP, is just, it feels like you're talking about a team like Milwaukee or the Rays that are kind of small ball, type playing teams, and that runs counter, at least it does in my mind, to what essentially it sounds like they're teaching them, which is the drive line guys, which is basically pulling the ball and hitting it in the air. It feels like there's just a misalignment with how they hit, and it's a one-size-fits-all mentality. And is that how you see it? And how do you have a small ball team and have an athletic team and talk about, well, the way you're talking about how they need to move runners when you're teaching this drive line technique?
Well, it's actually a really good point, and I don't know if the show's long enough for me to go off on Driveline. So the problem with trying to hit home runs is a couple of problems. One, when you don't have the personnel, you can't do it. Number two, what usually happens is in short series and close series, the power ends up running out. The good pitching shuts it down. And I would have thought what Toronto did last year by having so much success putting the ball in play that other teams would have built on it. And you touched on two teams that have done it, Tampa Bay and Milwaukee. They play to their strengths. They have athletic players. They touch the ball. They create people on base. They steal bases. And the 3 or 4 guys in their lineup that hit home runs, they always have someone on base with the potential to be a 2-run or 3-run home run. I think with the Red Sox lineup right now, they're not going to be a power club. So the faster they realize that, and the faster they start playing a little bit more of a not so much base to base, but take advantage, be a good first or third club, steal a base here and there. Don't be afraid to do a double steal every once in a while. And you got some guys that are struggling. Durant's struggling. He's a guy who can run. When he does get on base, take advantage of it and send him. So I like the point you made. I like the Milwaukee and the Tampa Bay comparison. And those two teams always seem to find a way to recreate themselves.
Now, JP, in today's MLB, can you be successful with the philosophy that this team has and has had since they got rid of Dombrowski, where it's not as much about spending for big money for big players, and instead it's trying to use stats and figure out a way to cut corners and maximize and depend on players playing to their maximum potential, unlike how they used to be, where you would get the big names here and they would be always one of the top spending teams in the league?
Well, I think it's a little bit of Pollyanna to think that you are going to out-analyze somebody else. Who in our game is analytically driven and is winning World Series? There's very, very few teams. And if you go back and look from the year 2000 to 2025, a 25-year period, the teams that have won the World Series have mostly been in the top 15 to 17 in payroll. There's only been a couple of outliers that have won the World Series. It was the 03 Marlins, and I believe there was one other club. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But if you trim that down even more, most teams that win the World Series are in the top 10 in payroll. It's the big leagues. You don't put a Missouri Mule in the Kentucky Derby. It ain't going to work. And you could try to outsmart these guys all you want, and you could do it for a little bit of time. Tampa Bay is always 80 and 82, 82 and, 80. They have 86 wins. And we did it in Oakland. We got through. We got to the playoffs, but we could never get over the hump because we could never afford the big bopper on the mound or the big bat. And I think if you try to outsmart people and outthink people and think you can reinvent the wheel, the game has showed it. It's right in the statistics. Teams don't do that and win the World Series. And the Red Sox, look at the Yankees. The Yankees are in the playoffs every year. The Red Sox should be in the playoffs every year because they've got the same type of monetary backing behind them. And I think the Yankees haven't won the World Series, but they're always there, and that's how the Red Sox should be.
Now, JP, speaking of that big bat, and I know you said it's tough to pull a trade. We live in fantasy land in the radio, so we just get these names thrown at us, and we throw them out ourselves. Would any of these names be realistic at all? Fernando Tatis, Mike Trout, Yordan Alvarez, Ketel Marte. Would you give up, elite young pitching in the system to go after one of these guys?
Well, Alvarez, you talk about the guy at Houston, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have no problem going after him. That's the type of bat they're looking for. And, Houston's a good matchup because, they're going to pull the plug at some point when they realize that maybe their season isn't heading the way they wanted. But, the Bennett kid, left-hander, young kid, good arm, that's a guy that you could put out in the trading block. And that's the one thing they have. They have a little bit of depth in their starting pitching that they can move some of their younger players. And you got to see what the other team's looking for. But if you've got Crochet and you've got Suarez and you got I forget the kid's name now from the kid who pitched the other night, pitched really good, guy from the Cardinals.
Sonny Gray.
You got Sonny Gray, you got Tolley, you got Early, you got 5 really good starting pitchers right there, and you got 2 young kids behind the 3 veterans. So anything else you've got in your system that you could deal, I'd have no problem dealing it.
JP, I just want to quickly go back to the great point you made about having to spend money and having to You said it so eloquently about you can't put a Mississippi horse or something.
Oh, no, Missouri Bull.
Missouri
Mule.
Bull, yeah, mule.
I looked it up. I was like, well, that's awesome.
It's a great, it's really a great way to put it, but I just don't know what it's going to take to make ownership change their philosophy. Do you think that it would be anger from the fans, apathy, people not going? Is this ownership capable of changing their mind on how they do business?
Well, I don't know the ownership personally. I've never worked with them. I've never been around them. I'm just an outsider like you guys looking in. I think that they've had a lot of success here and have done a lot of good things. And maybe they just don't want to get involved with all that luxury tax anymore. And maybe the only thing that is going to get their attention, so to speak, is people not going to Fenway Park or people not watching NESN. But you got to remember, this is a very, very loyal fan base. It's going to take a lot for people not to show up at Fenway because on a night-to-night basis, I bet you 25% of the people who show up at Fenway Park aren't from around here.
Yeah.
It's a destination firm, and it's always going to be a place that attracts fans. So I don't think Fenway Park's ever going to be empty. And I hope it doesn't come to that because, the Red Sox mean so much to this area and so many people are so tied to them. But, maybe losing and they lose to some teams that maybe they think that they shouldn't lose to, maybe spur them on a little bit more. But I think the ownership has done a great job here when you think about where they were and where they've come. And they've raised the bar so high now, people have expectations.
But I think you can also rest on your laurels. And I think that's what this ownership did. As a matter of fact, I believe that after they won all their championships and they just said, you know what, we're just not going to be spending anymore. And it happened to coincide with them getting ownership with other teams, obviously overseas. And then you got the Pittsburgh. And it just, as a fan, you're looking at it and it makes you a little pissed because you want them to always be hungry to win. And it just seems like they saw that. I think they probably feel that they've got a lifetime free pass because of what they've done, where truly fans in this town demand you give everything you've got every year to building a winner.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you one bit. I look around, though, the landscape has changed in baseball. It used to be the Red Sox and the Yankees were in the top 2 to 3 to 4 of payroll. Now you look, the Dodgers have basically said, we're going to spend whatever it takes to reward our fan base because they've become such a financial engine with so many different entities leading to them being so successful. But the Yankees have even pulled back. The Red Sox have pulled back. The Phillies are pretty much what they used to be. But there's a lot of clubs that have really backed off what they used to spend. And I don't know if it's just, a restructuring all across baseball, but there's less and less teams out there spending the way they did. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays have turned the corner and now decided that they're going to spend money. And the Mets have always been a club that has spent money. So it's shifted a little bit, but some teams are really drawing back a little bit. And I think the Red Sox are one of them.
Well, JP, I just hope that I read that article in the Globe today where they're like, I guess it was Alex Spear saying that right now there doesn't seem to be many plans for them making any moves. And I just want to watch entertaining baseball. That's the thing is that they're like, you know what they are? They're sports NyQuil. You just sit there, you just get sleepy, depressed, and just every night.
Watch the Woo Sox when JP's on the call.
It is. It's like it's baseball. It's sports NyQuil. And I just don't want that. I want to be able to enjoy myself. I love Fenway Park. Like you just said, it's awesome to bring people from out of town and go, hey, let me show off my city. And then you go there and you see 18 people left on base, and you're just like, I knew this was going to happen. And ex-players who you could have had, like Kyle Schwarber, come in and embarrass you night after night. It's just, I just, JP, me to you, I just hope that they do something because I hate bad baseball.
Well, I will tell you this. I don't know how much time you got here, but I will say this. You look at the last 3 games against Philadelphia. All 3 of those games could have went the Red Sox way. They really pitched well. So they're going to be in some games because they pitched well. It's pretty much they're sending up a signal, get me some offense, and I think this team could do well in the second half. So they got the one thing that a lot of people want. The problem is the Yankees have good pitching, Toronto has good pitching, and their offense is much better than the Red Sox. So they know what their need is, if they're able to address that, I wouldn't quit on the Red Sox in the second half, but they have to make a move.
Yep, absolutely. Well, JP, great stuff. JP Riccardi, baseball analyst for the Red Sox, NESN. You can see him all over the place. We appreciate you coming on with us. Thanks a bunch for
Thanks,
that.
JP.
Oh, anytime. Take care, guys.